Hi everybody, it's Crystal. Welcome to my channel. So today I have a stitch tutorial for you. I'm going to be showing you how to crochet the Apache Tears stitch. Now, a lot of people think this looks intimidating, but I'm here to tell you that there is nothing intimidating about this. It is so super easy. So please do not be afraid to try it. All it is single crochets and then a drop double crochet, which is just double crocheting in the row below, and I will show you how to do it. It's so easy. So the Apache Tears looks like this, and you can do it in whatever color combo you like. I was just using some scrap yarn that I had. Isn't that pretty? So this type of stitch here is going to have lots and lots of tails on both ends. So I sewed in my tails on this end. I didn't sew them in on this end, not yet. Now, the reason why there's so many tails is because when you work this stitch, this stitch here, when you go across, you have to clip your yarn and start back. You never turn your work. So the yarn, you have tails at both ends. Now, a lot of people will like to make an envelope border, which is basically kind of like two sides of double crochets, and then they clip their tail shorter, of course, and tuck them in and then seam up those two sides all the way around. I love the envelope border. I think it's beautiful, but I prefer myself the look of the sewn in ends. I like both. How about I prefer myself to sew in the ends versus making an envelope border. They're not my favorite things to make, but they do look pretty. But this side was just sewn in with a yarn needle. So here's what the back looks like. It's super clean on the back. Isn't that just nice? And those tails were sewn with a yarn needle. Now, I do not have a tutorial for an envelope border. There are lots of good YouTubers who do. You could probably look that up, and you know, if you don't want to sew in the tails, if you want to use this stitch to make a big blanket, you may not want to hide all the tails. I probably would still, but everybody's different. I will put a tutorial out for an envelope border as soon as I can, but I don't have one right now. But I will show you how to do the stitch. Anyways, so the Apache Tears stitch, remember, it's not hard. I promise you got this. You can use as many colors as you'd like. This one is made with 3. I'm going to set it to the side though, so you can see I showed you again. These did have tails, but they were sewn in. I didn't sew the tails in on this one yet. And the back. All right, and remember that scrap yarn. So I'm going to use some. I'm going to be using some Red Heart Super Saver metallic for the next one. I'm just going to make it 2 colors, or for my sample swatch here that I'm getting ready to show you. I'm just going to make it 2 colors. Now, depending on what you're making, that stitch is great for everything because it's so beautiful. I mean, the color combinations are endless, and it even looks cool solid. But I mean, the color combinations are endless. It's really easy, but it looks intricate. To me, it does. You know, it does, but it's not at all. And it's a nice, pretty solid stitch. So beautiful blankets, beautiful. You can make a top out of that. That'd be super cool. It would be. Well, but anything that you want to make. But remember, this is a stitch tutorial, so I'm just going to be showing you how to make the stitch. What you want to make with it will be up to you. I'll give you the multiple. You choose whatever yarn you want to use for whatever you decide to make. And the multiple of the Apache Tears is 6 plus 3. So what that means, you're going to start off with a slip knot on your hook. Now, as long as you know the basic stitches, pretty much just single and double, you will be able to do this. I promise you. And I would not tell you that you could if I didn't think that you couldn't. So, whether you're making a blanket, a scarf, whatever you're making, you need to chain a multiple of 6 plus 3, which means that you chain in 6s until you get to your desired length. So it's the 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 for however many inches. Say you want to make a blanket. You want to make it 60 inches wide, chain in sixes to a multiple of 6. Well, 60 is a multiple of 6, so that would work, but yes, that's what you do. And then once you get to your desired length, you add 3 more to your base chain, so a multiple of 6 plus 3. All right, so for row 1, now this is not a base row, we have to do this row. We are going to do a single crochet in the second stitch from our hook, so we don't count the one that's on our hook. When we go ahead and do a single crochet into that stitch, and then we're going to work across, and we're going to put 1 single crochet into every single stitch until you make it to the end of your row. So row 1 is just 1 single crochet in every stitch to the end. So I'll meet back up with you when we make it to the end of row 1. All right, when you make it to the end of row 1, now as I mentioned, you do have to tie off at the end of every row. So, and also you should have 1 less stitch than what your starting chain was. And that's the number you will keep throughout the whole pattern. All right, that's the stitch number. All right, so what I'm going to do, I made it to the end. I'm going to just chain 1, pull up a little bit and clip that off and pull that tight. So remember, we never turn our work. We're going to go start right back over here at this end for row 2. So whatever color yarn you decide to use, I'm going to start out with a slip knot on my hook again. Every time I put on a collar, I'm going to start out with a slip knot. Okay, so row 2 is start right here in this very first stitch. Now, and go ahead and pull your yarn through that slip knot that's on your hook. Now we're going to chain 1. Now we're going to go back into that very first stitch. The very first stitch of every row is always the same. We put a single crochet through both loops, all right? So you see how every stitch has 2 loops, right? The one closest to you is the front loop, and the one furthest away is the back loop. So we're going to go through both loops on the very first stitch and single crochet. So very first stitch, single crochet through both loops, just like that. Now, on the remaining single crochets besides the last one, we're going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch, but we're going to go through the back loop only. So not this loop here closest to you, but the one in the back, and you single crochet into it. And we're going to do that all the way across, 1 single crochet in the back loop only until we get to the last stitch. In the last stitch, we will go through both loops. So every row ends the same and it begins the same with a single crochet through both loops. But all the single crochets we do here in between are always worked in the back loop only. So I'm doing a row of 1 single crochet, but I'm only working it into the back loop, so you can see that front ridge up there. All right. So I'm going to continue along until I get to the last stitch on row 2. All right, so I'm coming to the end of row 2, and I'm at my last stitch. In the last stitch, we always go through both loops and do a single crochet. Always. So the first stitch of every row and the last stitch of every row are always the same. It's a single crochet in going through both loops. Single crochet, and we have to clip this yarn off, which, well, I already clipped it off, and then pull it tight like that. And then we have to, remember, we don't turn our work. Come back over here. with whatever color that you want. I'm just going to be using these two colors, but I always start my next row with a slip knot on my hook, like that. So row 3 now. So row 3 starts the repeat pattern. So we're going to go into our very first stitch here. Remember, very first one. That right there is just the chain one, all right? So you can see the very first stitch. Into it. Both loops, always both loops. Pull your yarn through that slip knot. Chain 1, back into the same stitch, both loops, back into that very same stitch, and single crochet, because that is the first stitch. All right, so now we're going to be doing a drop double crochet. So we did a regular single crochet into that very first stitch. So we're going to be working, when we do our drop double crochets, they're worked in these one loops, the front loops that we didn't work in the previous row. All right, so you see this right here. We're just going to yarn over and stick our hook. We're going to go from the underside, just like that. Grab that one loop and then pull it through. And sometimes I can stretch it. So what I like to do is put my thumb on it and hold it tight, and then do a double crochet, just like that. So that is the drop double. Now we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop of the next 5 stitches. You want to make sure that you don't go into the one that is behind this drop double that we just did. So you look back, see, you don't want to go into that one. Leave it be. And we're gonna go into the back loop of the next 5 and single crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we're going to do our drop double again. So right down here, here's our next stitch, the loop right below it. We're going to yarn over like we're going to do a double, but we're going to go into that one loop there, that front loop from the previous row, like that. Grab your yarn, pull it through, pull it up a bit, and then do your double crochet, just like that. And that's what we're going to repeat all the way across. So again, we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop of the next 5. Remember never to go into the single crochet that is behind this drop double. So what I always do is I kind of flip it over and I just leave one empty, and then I start in the next one here and single crochet in the back loop over 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again we have to do our drop double. So here's our next stitch. It's the loop right underneath it, the front loop from the previous row. It's just one loop you're going into, and we're just double crocheting into that, just like that. And let's repeat it again. So single crochet, back loop only at the next 5, making sure not to go into the one behind that drop double. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then drop double again. So here's your next stitch, the loop right below it, right there. Double crochet. Now we're going to go ahead and repeat this pattern until we get near the end of the row. All right, when you're coming to the end, you'll have of row 3, you'll have 6 stitches left. You want to do a single crochet into the back loop of 5. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and always, 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 the very last stitch, both loops. We single crochet through both loops. All right, it's very important, both loops. So go ahead and single crochet, and we have to clip this yarn off. That ends row 3. Now, the rest of the rows are just like so easy, because now you'll be able to see very easily where your drop doubles need to go, because you just laid down your first one, and the next ones just go right beside it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start our yarn again. Row 4, starting that very first stitch here. And pull through that slip knot on your hook. Kind of pull your tail to pull it tighter. All right, chain 1, go back into it because it's our first stitch, and go through both loops and single crochet. Now the next stitch you can see is the drop double from the previous row. We need to single crochet into the back loop of that stitch. Now you can see that the next stitch is actually going to be right next to or right after the drop double. So that's where we want to put our next drop double, right after the one that we just did. So what we're going to do is yarn over, and we're going to go in the row right below the single crochet, and we're going to go into that one loop that we didn't go into on the previous row and do a drop double, just like that. So that lined up those 2 drop doubles. We're going to start the repeat now, and we're going to do 5 single crochets in the back loop of the next 5 stitches. Remember not to go into the one right behind your drop double. So back loop, single crochet 5 times. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's 5. And you should be ending on that drop double in the back loop of it. Now what you want to do is a drop double in the loop from the previous row that we didn't work in. So right here, and it's right next to this one. So we yarn over and go in to that one loop, and we do our drop double, just like that. And this is what we're going to repeat until we get near the end of the row. So again, single crochet in the back loop only of the next 5. Always remember never going into the one that's behind the drop double that you just did. So back loop only, 5 single crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you should be ending on that drop double, and then we have to drop double into the next spot. So the row right below that front loop that we didn't work in, go right through it, draw up, and do your drop double. So look how easy that is. This is pretty much how all the rows are going to be from now on. It's super easy now to see where your drop doubles need to go, because they just go in a stitch right after the previous drop double. All right, it's just very important that you don't go into the single crochet behind the drop double. So again, single crochet in the back loop at the next 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you should always end on top of a post stitch, the back loop of the post stitch, or the back loop of the drop double. I apologize that I keep calling it a post stitch. I'm sorry. Now we need to do our drop double right down here into the row below that front loop, just like that. And then you just keep repeating this pattern until you can't repeat it anymore for row 4 till you get near the end. Now when you're coming near the end, you're going to start to get have less single crochets at the end until eventually you only have one left, and then you just start to repeat over. So now there are 5 single crochets left. So we're going to put a single crochet in the back loop of the next 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one we go through both loops and single crochet and tie it off, clip the tail, and then bring in your next color, whatever that might be, and we'll go ahead and start row 5, which is it's pretty much the same as what we've been doing, but you'll just notice that you'll be gaining stitches on this end and gaining single crochets on this end and losing single crochets on this end. And once you have only one stitch left on this end before a post, that's when it starts over, or before a drop double, that's when it starts over. Slip knot. Not everybody starts with the slip knot on this stitch. And a lot of people do this stitch differently. So, but remember, it's very easy regardless of how you do it. So again, I'm going to start into my very first stitch here on the end. Very first stitch we start. I pull through that slip knot that's on my hook. Pull my tail tight. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to go back through that very first stitch and single crochet because it's my first stitch. Now I'm going to do a single crochet in the back loop of the next 2 stitches, back loop. So there's 1 and 2, and you'll notice that I am on top of a post stitch, which you should be, and then the next stitch will be a drop double. So we're going to drop double down into the row below that we just did, that front loop that we didn't work in. We're going to go right into it and drop double down, just like that. And then we start the repeat that we've been doing. We're going to do a single crochet in the back loop of the next 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you see you will always end on the post stitch, the drop double, post stitch, drop double, whatever. You always end on this drop double, always, from the previous row after you do your 5, and then the next stitch is always the drop double. So in the row below right there, that loop, that front loop that we didn't go into, drop double right into it. And again, back loop in the next 5. Remember, never working into the one behind the post stitch. So single in the back loop of the next 5, that's 2. There's 3. There's 4. There's 5. You always wind up on top of the post stitch, and the drop double in the back loop of it, and the next one is always a post or a drop. All right, the next one's always a drop double, just like that. And then we just keep repeating this until we get near the end of the row. So we'll repeat it until we make our last drop double, and that's where I'll meet back up with you. All right, I'm coming to the end, and I just did a drop double, and now you can see there's only 4 stitches left. So we're gonna single crochet in the back loop of the next 3. 1, 2, 3, and that last one we always go through both loops and single crochet, tie it off, and we can start row 6. Give it a nice tie, pull there, nice tug. So you can kind of see how it's going, can't you? It's pretty easy. Slip knot. First stitch over here. Go through both loops of it. Pull through that slip knot. Tug on that slip knot. Make it tight. Chain 1, and we single crochet in the very first stitch, both loops. And now we're going to do single crochet in the back loop of the next 3. So as you see, you're gaining more on this side and losing more on this side. So there's 1, 2, 3, and now we got to do our drop double because we're right on top of this drop double from the previous row. So we're going to yarn over, and in the stitch from the previous row, the front loop that you didn't work in, which is right next to the drop double from the previous row, we drop double into that one. And now we're going to do a back loop only, single crochet in the next 5, making sure not to go into the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And after you do your 5, you always end up on top of the drop double from the previous row. That's how you know that you're in the right spot and that your next stitch needs to be a drop double in that front loop from the previous row. And we're just going to repeat this pattern till we get our last drop double. So 5 in the back loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I am on top of that drop double from the previous row. So now I know that my next stitch needs to be a drop double in that front loop from the previous row that we did not work in. Just like that. Now we're going to keep repeating that, and I'll meet back up with you when we get near the end and we do our last drop double and we only have a few stitches left. Alright, coming near the end of row 6. I just did my 5 singles in the back loop. I'm on top of this drop double from the previous row, so that means that's my cue that the next stitch is a drop double down in the front loop from that previous row that we didn't work into. Just like that. And now you can see that we have 3 stitches left. So we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop of the next 2. There's 1 and 2, and the last one we go in both loops and single crochet. And we gotta chain 1, clip this off, pull it tight. All right, start row 8, bring in your next color, slip knot on my hook, and starting into the very first stitch, both loops, going through that slip knot. I bet you guys got the gist of it now, don't you? Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to go right back in that same stitch, and we're going to put single crochet into it. Now we're going to single crochet in the back loop of the next 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you know that we are on top of the drop double from the previous row. That's our cue. We got a drop double in the next stitch in that front loop right next to it that we didn't go into on the previous row. just like that. And then we start doing the 5 single crochets in the back loop only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, always ending on the drop double from the previous row. That means we got a drop double in the next stitch, 1 row down in that front loop. And we're going to repeat this until we get near the end of row 7. 5 in the back loop only, single crochets. And I'm in my right spot because I'm on top of that drop double. Next stitch is a drop double in the front loop of the previous row. Alright, we're going to keep repeating this until we do our last drop double here, and you'll have 2 stitches left, and that's where I'll meet back up with you. Alright, I just did my last drop double. I have 2 stitches left, so I'm going to single crochet in the back loop of one of them, and then the last stitch we always just have to do a single crochet through both loops. And then tie it off. That ends row 7. Like that. Start row 8. Which, with whatever color you choose, it's amazing how your color combos can make things look really different. It can make it look like a totally different stitch. But it is the same. Alright, right back here to the beginning. You know how we start. Single crochet. Well, go through that first stitch and pull through that slip knot on your hook. Pull your tail tight. Chain 1. Always the first stitch gets single crochet through both loops. Now, you can see we have 5 stitches that we need to put single crochets in the back loop. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when I get my 5 in there, I'm on top of the drop double from the previous row. That's my cue that my next stitch is a drop double. So it goes into that front loop from the previous row, and we drop double into that, and then we repeat again, 5 singles in the back loop of the next 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up on top of my drop double from the previous row. That's my cue. Next stitch is a drop double right down in the row below in the front loop that we didn't work in. Just like that. And repeat. Back loop of the next 5 stitches. We single crochet. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm on top of my post stitch. It's where I need to be. So my next, on top of my drop double. So my next stitch is the drop double right there in that front loop from the previous row. So why don't we go ahead and repeat this until we have 1 stitch left, because we'll be working a drop double here at this last stitch, and I'll meet up with you at the end. Alright, coming to the end of row 8, I just did my drop double, and I just have 1 stitch left on the end, so I have to go through both loops of it, and single crochet, and tie that off, and that finishes the repeat. Rows 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the repeat rows. So tie that off, and then for row 9, we start by repeating row 3 which is the first drop double. So it starts out right here, which is every row we gain a single crochet, and then over here every row at the end we lose a single crochet. And then once we get to where we can't do any more single crochets but the one on the end, well, we start over with our repeat. So for row 9, I'm going to repeat row 3. I'll go ahead and show you. Slip knot on the hook. First stitch, always go through that slip knot. Pull it tight, chain 1. First stitch is always single crochet into going through both loops. Now when you're starting your repeat over, remember we're doing row 3 again, and there is no this first stitch, there's no drop double from the previous row to show you where to go. Just know it's the very next stitch. So you do your very first stitch, the very next one, we're going to do a drop double in right there in that loop from the previous row. And that's exactly what we did on row 3. And now we're going to start the repeat. Back loop of single crochet in the back loop of the next 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now you can see we're on top of that post stitch from the previous row. That's our cue. Drop double. To go down and drop double into that front loop right beside it from the previous row. So that's it. Now we're just repeating row 3. How easy is that? 3 through 8, and you just keep repeating it until you get it to the size that you want it to be. I mean, please don't give up on it. I mean, once you get it down, you're gonna be like, I bet you already got it down. But if you don't give up and keep trying, because once you get it, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. Think of all the cool color combos that I can make with this stitch. I mean, you can, like I said, you can make the whole thing solid if you want. Or you could do like 4 rows of one color, 4 rows of another, 4 rows of another, or 6 rows of one color and 2 rows of another, or every row a different color, or however you want to do it. Because it'll be whatever you're making, it'll be yours, and you can do it however you like. And it's just so simple. I just know that sometimes stitches intimidate people, but I want to tell you, as long as you know the basic stitches, you can make anything in crochet. Anything if you know the basics. So remember, at the end of row 3 here, now I know there's a post stitch here, but we're not going to put a post stitch after it. All right, so there were 6 stitches left at the end of row 3. We're repeating row 3 right now. So we are doing a back single crochet in the back loop of 5. So your 5th one is on top of that drop double, but your last one is going through both loops and doing 1 single crochet. That's it. Repeating row 3. That was row 9. So for row 10, we're going to repeat row 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How stinking cool is that? And like I said, it's amazing what a difference how you arrange your colors, I think, can make it look. It's cool, and this is a really cool stitch, because to me this is one stitch where the color combos are absolutely endless, and they can change the look of it so much depending on how you do it. But regardless, it's always beautiful, like I said. Now remember, you're going to have tails on both ends. I like to sew mine in. You don't have to sew yours in. Like I said, you can look up how to do an envelope border. I don't have a tutorial at the moment. I will put one on and as soon as I can. Which basically encapsulates your tails here. What you do is you just kind of tie them in knots at the end for the envelope border, clip them shorter. And like I said, you have to go around your whole piece with, there's different ways you can do it. Your whole piece with either single crochets on both sides or slip stitches on both sides. And then build up like a little wall on both sides. And then you stuff your tails in that little wall. And then you would seam the top, or crochet the top of the little wall together. That's like an envelope border. But for me, I do prefer sewing in the tails for this stitch anyways. But that way, the reason why I like to sew in tails, you can go if you want. I appreciate you watching. But that way, when I sew in the tails, I like to do it that way because then I can put a different border on. I don't have to use the envelope border. I can just, since my tails are sewed in, I can start with the new stitch and do a border around it, whatever kind of border I want. So, you know, but the choice is yours. It's your piece, right? And you make it how you want it. You make it how you like to make it. So I would just put a whatever kind of border I wanted around it, like that, since I sewed in my tails. But whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But that's it. That's how you do the Apache Tears. How easy was it? Tell me it was easy in the comments. I know you can do it. And I want to see a picture of yours. This is one I would really love to see a picture of so I can see your color combos. I always love to see color combos on this stitch because, like I said, I think every color combo gives it such a unique look. Regardless of what you do, it's still beautiful though. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Leave me a comment below and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in my next video. Okay, take care. Bye guys.